ejaculation. They call that the 2-minute man or whatever you want to call it. Women usually take 10 to 11 minutes to reach an orgasm, if they do. That's another difference between the sexes. How often they have an orgasm during sex. Amongst men who are a part of a couple, 75% say they always have an orgasm, opposed to 26% of women. And not only is there a difference in reality, there's one in perception too. While the men's female partners reported their rate of orgasm accurately, the women's male partners said they believed their female partners had orgasms 45% of the time. So, that means that when men go into sex, they have to get an orgasm. There's no way around it. If you're going to have sex, I got to have it. Women can have sex and not get an orgasm and come out of the sexual act and still be okay. Now, not saying that they shouldn't get an orgasm, not saying they don't want an orgasm, and sorry for the discussion on these mature topics, and we're mature people. But so many women, like I said, according to the survey, 26% of women experience orgasms in sex. That's a very small number. That's a fail. That's not even a 50%. So that means most of the time that people have sex, the women are not truly satisfied to the level that they should be, but men are always satisfied. Men have to have it. Even their physical body, they don't reach orgasms as quickly as a man. It takes a longer period of time. Some women struggle even with receiving an orgasm. It could take 30 minutes, an hour, very long periods. It's very specific. And a woman's sex drive, of what we just learned, can be shut off based on the context, the emotions, the talking, the feelings around them. Meanwhile, the man is just going at it. He doesn't care, and he's going to feel satisfied, and he really doesn't care. That's why men go to prostitutes. They don't care if they love them. They don't care if they see them again. Women, it's a little different. Don't you notice who hollers after the people on the street? Very rarely do you see women whistling down the, hey, baby. That would seem really weird, wouldn't it? Women don't do that. Women have a little more control over their bodies. Men, if you just have a woman walking in tights down the road, you're going to get 10 men looking. Hey. You're going to have a couple men talking to you. I'm going to read one more part of this thing so that we can understand this whole context. And I hope you're learning something. I hope you're seeing perhaps what God is seeing and why God is making exceptions here and not there, or there and not here. It says here, women's libido, sex drive, is less responsive to drugs. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it says testosterone has been linked to sex drive in both men and women. But testosterone works much faster in men with low libidos than women. According to Dr. Glenn Bronstein, the past chair of the Department of Medicine at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles and the leading researcher of testosterone treatments in women, he says, while the treatments are effective, they're not as effective in women as they are in men. There is a hormonal factor in the sex drive, but it is much more important in men than women. A testosterone patch for women called Intrinsa has been approved in Europe but was rejected by the FDA due to concerns about long-term safety. But the drug has sparked a backlash from some medical and psychiatric professionals who question whether low sex drive in women should even be considered a condition best treated with drugs. They point to the results of a large survey which about 40% of women reported some sort of sexual problem, most commonly low sexual desire, but only 12% said they felt distressed about it. With all the factors that go into the stew that picks sexual desire in women, some doctors say a drug should be the last ingredient to consider rather than the first. So if that didn't make any sense to you, 40% of women, according to large surveys, 40% of these women have a problem with sex. And only 12% of these 40% of women cared. So that means that the vast majority of women, 88% of women who have sexual problems, really don't care. they can go about their daily lives without sex. And only 12%, a very small minority, that's like a tithe of the women that has sexual problems care. So what am I saying here in regards to Matthew chapter 19? Why does God seem to give the exception for the men? Well, you can divorce your wife except for fornication. If a man who divorces his wife except for fornication commits adultery, and whoever marries a divorced wife commits adultery. I wonder whether this has anything to do with our biology and our makeup. I wonder if this has anything to do with why God allowed certain things in the Old Testament, why God gives this grace to men that doesn't seem to be necessary for the women. Or rather, maybe some feel that it's necessary for the women. Maybe it's because the need for sex in men is something that biologically is very difficult to